What if I told you that everything you've been taught about financial freedom is a carefully constructed illusion, a gilded cage designed to keep you chasing shadows, while the true currency of life, your sovereign time, slips through your fingers? You strive for riches, believing they will buy your liberty. But what if wealth, as you perceive it, is merely a tool, and often a distraction from the real liberation you seek? Welcome, seekers of truth, to Ancient Wisdom Unlocked. Today we delve into the heart of what it truly means to be financially free. It is not about the overflowing coffers, the extravagant possessions. These are but instruments. True financial freedom, the liberation we instinctively yearn for, is time autonomy. It is the state where you no longer need to trade your precious hours, the very fabric of your existence, merely to meet the essential demands of life. Consider this: before you can attain any state, you must first possess a crystal-clear definition of it. A nebulous aspiration is a ship without a rudder, lost in the chaotic seas of desire. How can you architect a plan for a destination that remains a blur in your mind's eye? So if you have reached a point where the gnawing anxiety of making ends meet has dissolved, where the wolf of necessity no longer howls at your door, then and only then can you whisper to your soul, "I am financially free." Before we journey deeper, if you find solace and insight in these explorations, do honor this channel with your subscription. Together we shall unveil more hidden truths about the currents of currency and the pathways to genuine autonomy. Perhaps you anticipated a lecture on intricate investment strategies, the alchemy of capital leverage, the cryptic dance of stock exchanges, or the art of amassing estates. These methods are paraded before you endlessly in the cacophony of social media, the hallowed pages of financial gurus, the hushed tones of market whisperers. But I ask you, do these methods genuinely universally work? We are inundated with chronicles of fortunes forged through such tactics. But can you replicate them? Can their very authors replicate their own success consistently? Pause and reflect. If a method truly guarantees wealth, would it be so readily broadcast to the masses? Would the keys to the kingdom be handed out at the city gates? Some paths are suited only to particular souls, much like each hunter has his unique spoor, each minstrel his singular melody. To merely copy another's blueprint in the hope of identical personal triumph is an endeavor fraught with futility. Thus, it is often those operating at a less refined level of understanding who perpetually hunt for methodologies, hoping for perfect mimicry. Yet this rarely elevates anyone to lasting command. What I wish to impart is this: methodologies entice those on the lower rungs. Those who ascend higher focus on the underlying logic, the Tao, the immutable principles. For the Tao is the law, and the law admits no personal failing. He who aligns with the law becomes an embodiment of its power. How does one become such a force? By aligning with the law. How does one align? First, by understanding the law. Seek out these cosmic statutes, and your path will illuminate as if by an inner sun. Many of our worldly afflictions persist, not because solutions are absent or problems insurmountable, but because our mode of thinking, our very approach, is flawed. Every decision we make is filtered through our beliefs, our perspectives, our interpretation of the world. Yet are these personal vantage points not often narrow, blinkered by limited experience? If we rely solely on our finite personal history to navigate the complexities of relationships, commerce, or finance, our vision will invariably be myopic, distorted. What then is the remedy? We must ground ourselves in the principles of the universe, the objective laws, and use this framework to replace the outdated operating system of purely experiential thought. It is an upgrade to your cognitive engine, transforming it into a vessel capable of traversing any terrain. As the sage Charlie Munger observed, "To the man with only a hammer, everything he encounters begins to look like a nail." This is the peril of unidimensional thinking. Therefore, our constant practice must be to extract these governing laws. When confronted with a challenge, think beyond the specific remedy. Ascend from the particular answer to unearth the general methods and universal principles applicable to all similar future dilemmas. If you can master this art of abstraction, you possess the key to transmuting from the mundane to the masterful, from mortal to a force aligned with the divine order by perceiving the very sinews of heaven and earth. As we conclude this segment, I implore you scrutinize the daily choices you make. Are they rooted in fleeting personal experience or anchored in objective, timeless laws? There's an ancient saying, heaven's way. Tiandao is impartial. It always favors the skillful man. Tiandao wu qin chang yu shan ren. Heaven's way, the eternal law of the cosmos, is not swayed by personal sentiment. It does not discriminate between good or bad individuals in the way human morality does. The Tao is natural law, operating with cold, objective precision, unmoved by human desire or intent. The phrase always favors the skillful man, Chang Yu Shan Ren, is often misunderstood. Shan, skillful, shash, good here, does not merely denote benevolence. It signifies adroitness in harmonizing with and utilizing these natural laws. Natural law, heaven's way, will inevitably aid those who understand how to wield its principles to achieve their aims. This individual is the Shan Ren, one adept at navigating the currents of natural, social, and interpersonal dynamics. In truth, when one fully relinquishes flawed paradigms and subjective biases acting in concert with Tiandao and the objective laws of nature, they become an instrument of Tiandao. They embody these laws, and as such, they become indomitable. If you can articulate the fundamental drivers behind all your motives, every action you take will draw you closer to the essence of reality, the bedrock of society. Why? Because these objective laws have been stress-tested in the crucible of the cosmos for eons. The system is preordained. Spring for sowing, autumn for reaping. Disrupt this order and failure is inescapable. Yet some persist in swimming against this cosmic tide, and their fields predictably remain barren. In the realm of finance, it is no different. If you seek to transcend social strata, you must comprehend the laws that govern such ascendance. If you desire financial autonomy in any domain, you must grasp these fundamental statutes. Consider the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. In any system, a minority of inputs, roughly 20%, will generate a majority of the outputs, roughly 80%. In business, 20% of your clients might yield 80% of your revenue. In society, a mere 20% of the population often controls 80% of the wealth. In your own financial endeavors, out of 100 trades, perhaps only 20 will yield significant profit, while the other 80 offer meager gains or even losses. Once you internalize that our world operates under this 80-20 edict, you confront a stark reality. The world, by its very nature, is not fair. Equity is a human ideal, often at odds with the operational code of reality. In any field, only that vital 20% are likely to achieve substantial affluence. The remaining 80%, the odds are stacked against them. You must strive with every fiber of your being to enter that scarce 20%. This is amplified by what is known as the Matthew effect. For whoever has more will be given, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have even what they have will be taken from them. The rich do indeed tend to get richer, and the poor poorer. This is not a curse, but a description of a self-reinforcing dynamic a law as immutable as gravity. It applies universally. When an individual, an entity, a project begins to excel, it attracts more resources, more opportunities, thus propelling it further. Conversely, once one begins a descent into scarcity, the slide often accelerates, making recovery exponentially harder. These laws, the 80-20 rule, the Matthew effect, tell us that the distribution of resources and wealth is profoundly asymmetrical. A select few command the lion's share. This imbalance left unchecked will invariably widen. Successful individuals and organizations will continue to compound their success, while the less fortunate will find it increasingly challenging to escape their circumstances. When you comprehend these invisible architectures, you begin to see why these unseen forces weigh upon you. Only by understanding these foundational principles can you truly architect your path to financial freedom and social transcendence. The affluent associate with the affluent, the impoverished with the impoverished. Social mobility in the eras to come is likely to become increasingly restricted, more hermetically sealed. Consider the housing market in many Western cities, a stark testament to this trend. Once social strata solidify, breaching these ramparts becomes an almost Herculean task. Eventually, it risks creating a system where, as the old saying goes, dragons beget dragons, phoenixes beget phoenixes, and the son of a mouse is skilled at digging holes. This is not jest. It is the somber reality of lived experience. The children of affluent families, through superior education and accumulated social capital, are groomed to inherit familial wealth. Conversely, the offspring of struggling families, often ensnared in cycles of conspicuous consumption or systemic disadvantage, find it incredibly difficult to break free. The relentless pursuit of status symbols, the obsession with brands. This pressure suffocates not just our generation, but the next. If one generation fails to navigate these treacherous waters effectively, the subsequent one faces an even steeper climb, for opportunities will narrow for those lacking exceptional disruptive capabilities. Even in a theoretically fair system, much is determined at birth. Look to history, not just your own nation's, but Europe's, Asia's, any civilization you choose. The 80-20 societal structure is a recurring decimal. Regardless of the dynasty or the political system, society eventually ossifies, often leading to upheaval. Yet new forces swiftly emerge, re-establishing a similar pyramidal structure, adhering to the 80-20 pattern. This dynamic equilibrium will persist, perhaps, until humanity itself ceases to be. The external forms may shift, empires may rise and fall, but the underlying architecture remains. So, what is the raw truth of society? It is that the human world at its core operates under the law of the jungle. It is a contest of strength, of influence, of power. Those who wield the greatest power ultimately dictate the division of spoils. This is the unvarnished reality we inhabit. If you wish to carve out your financial sanctuary within this jungle, if you aspire to transcend your designated class, you must first unflinchingly acknowledge this truth. The base of the pyramid comprises the 80%, the governed masses, often lacking voice, decision-making power, and control. They are many, yet often fragmented. The apex is the 20%. The elite, the architects who hold the means of production, direct societal narratives, and manage the systems of governance. When you grasp this model, many veils fall from your eyes. These laws, these theorems I share, are meant to shatter the comforting illusion that anyone can get rich simply by participating in the market. You must understand the fundamental nature of this societal game. There are those who still perceive this world as a polite tea party governed by etiquette and fairness. If this is your lens, you will find the acquisition of true resources exceedingly challenging. You must see it as the jungle it is. Observe the animal kingdom. How do species protect themselves, ensure their lineage thrive in environments fraught with peril? You need not look far. Their strategies for managing unforeseen risks and ever-present challenges are raw, efficient, and instructive. In any domain, if you wish for wealth or status, you must become an exception. You must be the minority. If your thoughts, words, and actions mirror the 80%, how then can you be different from those who are by definition managed and controlled? Have you ever played the game of Monopoly? If you understand its mathematics, you'll realize that even though it involves the luck of dice rolls, if you alter your starting capital to be merely 3 times that of your opponent's defeat becomes improbable. If your capital is 10 times greater, victory is virtually guaranteed perpetually. Not only that, but you can swiftly bankrupt others because you can develop your properties without hesitation, even seize theirs. Then you simply wait. They will deliver their diminishing funds to you, becoming progressively poorer until they are eliminated. Do you attribute this to your brilliance, your strategy, your skill? No. It is not a matter of tactics. It is the raw power of capital. At that point, intelligence is secondary. A pair of dice suffices. Are the other 3 players fools? Incapable of resistance. They resist, but their efforts are futile against the overwhelming tide of your capital. In reality, under the dominion of heavily capitalized forces, you and a legion of struggling workers might be on the same path. But you are facing a game rigged from the start, where others began with assets, magnified tenfold, compounded over generations. If no one disrupts this trajectory, then by the Matthew effect, the poor will indeed grow poorer. This is the essence of our societal marketplace. Your personal economic struggles are fundamentally about your position and influence within this market, your class standing. If you possess the capacity to be among the 20% who make or significantly influence decisions, then market fluctuations, however violent, will not critically undermine your position. In fact, if you are powerful enough, like the Federal Reserve in the United States, do you truly believe the Fed primarily represents the interests of the common citizen? You can dictate market direction. The Fed decides on interest rates, expands or contracts the money supply. It shapes the flow. Those behind such institutions, they will not become poor regardless of how many others do. For the average investor of median capability, they typically belong to the 80% who are participants, not shapers. They are buffeted by market volatility, feeling helpless, ultimately becoming pawns manipulated by larger capital forces. In a world where a select few hold the reins, the majority are in a reactive, dependent state. Yes, we've discussed the Pareto principle. It is inherently unfair. Nature is dispassionate. It does not punish the wicked because you are virtuous. These laws operate with an indifferent, amoral precision. They simply are. Yet this very universe has gifted us a weapon to counter this seeming injustice, to forge our own opportunities. That weapon is alignment with these laws. This is the greatest secret I can impart for escaping a lesser station and ascending. Whether you apply it to profit from markets, enhance your asset value, or any other endeavor, it is achievable, provided your methods are grounded in these principles. Here are strategies distilled from this understanding. 1. Fear nothing. You lack backing resources, capital, yet you are paralyzed by fear, by hesitation. In such a constrained environment, what can you truly accomplish if courage deserts you? If you lack the audacity even to step onto the stage of life and perform? You believe that sharpening your intellect, devouring books, attending seminars is sufficient. But if when the moment of action arrives, Fear constricts your heart, all is for naught. If your awareness cannot ignite the valor to claim your space, then I tell you it is insufficient. 2. Become the minority, even the anomaly. Only by acting differently can you achieve a different status. If your speech, your conduct, your very presence is indistinguishable from the 80%, what differentiates you from the controlled? When I observe reactions to market downturns, I can often predict who is destined for ruin. If you can endure pain, others cannot. If you can remain tranquil when the markets convulse, even when your coffers are bare, you have begun to enter that exceptional 20% dictated by Pareto. Then and only then do you have a fighting chance to transcend class limitations. 3. Learn to listen intelligently. Heed those who have achieved dazzling success in their domain. In my youth, I was rebellious, convinced of my own infallibility. Indeed, I achieved successes beyond my peers, which bred arrogance. A decade later, looking back, I could only berate my youthful folly. I had many noble mentors, then veterans of financial battlefields, who offered priceless counsel. I dismissed it all, convinced of my own superior insight. Reality proved that a casual piece of advice from a seasoned master can save you 10 years of brutal trial and error. It's like suffering a stomach ailment. Instead of consulting a physician, you self-diagnose with ancient medical texts and modern journals. Does it work? Or do you seek the expert from the outset? One piece of expert advice can eclipse a decade of solitary fumbling. Most cannot do this. Seeing another's superiority, their first instinct is criticism, envy, fueled by an inner sense of injustice. The core for me is that no matter how many descents into despair I endured, I always believed in myself. This is not a contradiction. Why does listening to others mean I am intelligent? I discovered a bug in the world's operating system. Some players level up faster. To overcome the system's limitations upon me, I intelligently mimicked them. I listened. My innate strength and wisdom were finite, but by this emulation, I feigned to be them, the successful ones. The system might then mistake me for one of the chosen. Do you understand? Listening does not negate self-belief. It means I acknowledge my current ignorance in a specific area. The methodology may need constant change and adjustment, but I do not. I trust myself unconditionally. Some falter here. When their methods fail, they believe they are worthless. This is a fatal error. For all those who rise from humble beginnings, there is often only one path: maturation through hardship. Accumulating experience and assets through diligent labor until one day you might reach what was another's starting point. Perhaps the starting line of a second-generation affluent individual. At that moment, you may seem to have only just arrived where they began, but in truth, your capabilities will far surpass theirs. For those born into privilege, their inherent abilities, their mental fortitude, their willpower often cannot compare to yours, forged in the crucible of adversity. Your assets might be comparable then, but you will be on an upward trajectory, they perhaps on a plateau or even a decline. The so-called 100-year reputation, the 1,000-year enterprise, a name echoing through millennia, these are ultimately insignificant compared to one singular truth: living your life in the way you cherish. In this era, while multitudes chase wealth and fame in the concrete jungles, I might find myself in a desolate place, listening to the crashing waves immersed in the cool embrace of nature. The meaning of life is not merely the accumulation of assets. It is found when you can live your life on your own terms, in the manner you deeply desire. That is true success. We yearn for financial freedom. We aspire to transcend class, not merely for the sake of money, but for more time and more liberty, to live the life we choose, to become the person we are meant to be. Thank you for journeying with me through these reflections today. If these words have resonated within your soul, if they have stirred something profound, do not keep this understanding to yourself. Share it with your friends, your loved ones, those who you feel are also seeking a deeper truth. Subscribe to Ancient Wisdom Unlocked. Consider this channel not just a source of information, but a companion on your voyage of discovery, a fellow traveler in the quest for meaning and autonomy. And now I leave you with a question. Ponder it and share your insights in the comments below. Of all the hidden laws we've discussed today, the 80-20 rule, the Matthew effect, the law of the jungle, which one have you most palpably experienced in your own life or observed in the world around you? What was its impact? I am your guide from Ancient Wisdom Unlocked. Seek truth, live fully. Until we meet again.